Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna have to revise my opinion because previously I was staunch and like, no, your iPhone is not listening to you. It's actually it's worse that people don't understand how good the machine learning and like recommendation algorithms are for platforms. I do still think that that's true. However, it absolutely is now the case that your iPhone is listening to you. There are in fact data brokers that I have identified that you can in fact buy that data from.
Welcome to Punchy by Rival, where we take the gloves off to share the hard-hitting realities of the challenger marketing world. Each week, we'll break down the buzz and cut through the BS of the top stories and trends to tell you what you really need to know and do differently to grow your brand and career.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Punchy. I'm not Eric Fulweiler. He's on CompuServe in a hotel room somewhere. CompuServe was an internet platform, Jenna. The internet was a thing we used to dial into back in the day. So anyway, welcome to Punchy. As you may be familiar with if you've seen the show before, what we do is have guests where we're going to chat through the news and marketing stories of the day, get everyone's opinion, allocate some points, and then the winner will be able to have a few minutes to speak about whatever they like at the end. Today, we're lucky enough to have with us Valentina Christensen. She's the Director of Growth and Communications at OakNorth. I have some show notes here that tell me some amazing things about Valentina. She was OakNorth's first marketing and communications hire back in 2015. And apart from leading the marketing and communications department at OakNorth, she was also in the Women in FinTech Power List 2018. It's a standout 35 after that. I think that might be like a subset of the Women in Power List. So like it's two lists that you've been on at the same time. That's incredibly impressive. Other things we know on your LinkedIn, she clearly states that all views are her own, and thank God for that, as we know that sometimes there are punches thrown on this show. So please, everyone who has a functioning internet connection, join me in welcoming Valentina Christensen. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on. Very excited.
No problem. And, generally, as long as we don't drop more people on this, I think it'll be a great conversation between the three of us. Otherwise, by the end of this, if the internet goes down, it could just be Jenna for 10 minutes talking about whatever's happened today. On that note, Jenna, how are you doing?
I'm good, but you can't leave me alone. I might go full Kanye. Actually, no, I wouldn't go full Kanye, but I might go
No
like
one
Kanye
goes full
light
Kanye.
No one goes full Kanye, but definitely don't leave me alone with a platform to myself for that long. Clearly, it causes problems for people.
Don't worry, I won't. So let's go ahead and jump into everything. So to introduce the format, we'll be talking, as we mentioned, about some of the most interesting marketing news of the week. I'll kind of summarize the beginning of the stories. And for the one I submitted, I'll also compete. Points will be given out for the best opinions. And at the end, there'll be a winner. As we pointed out before, the points are mostly a societal construct that we have to buy into. Bit like money before 2010, I imagine. So, that'll be something that can be distributed in a lot of different ways. So, shall we jump into the first story? So, Valentina, this one's from you, and it's incredibly interesting. It's from Influence Online, and it's about the color psychology of big brands. One of the things we thought was quite interesting looking at the story is it says that 84.7% of consumers name color as the main reason why they purchase a particular product, which supports the idea that colors can have the power to influence how we behave. Examples like the color red being used in Coca-Cola demanding attention, the color blue being used in branding and marketing to evoke trustworthiness, dependability, and commitment. Brands like Facebook, Ford, Oreo, Skype, and PayPal. I love this story because I know there's a color of blue called Internet Blue, which was famous starting with Facebook and then kind of being adopted by other tech brands. And then also yellow being said to promote happiness and optimism and being associated with sunshine, hope, and laughter. And to be fair, seeing that it's in McDonald's, who doesn't feel more optimistic and happy after a trip to McDonald's, though that might just be me. So let's put some time on the clock. Valentina, what do you think of this story? You've got a minute. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think, color is such an important part of brand identity. I guess the number that was quoted there, 84.7% of consumers saying color is the main reason they purchase a particular product. I would say probably if they were going at it without having had any previous interaction with that product before. So I don't imagine if they tried something and thought it was really crap and then were like, oh, but I'm still gonna go for this one because the color is great. But you see it with so many brands. I mean, Tiffany Blue, for example, that's been copyrighted since 1998. You've seen it in other ways, color being used, for example, Louboutin, and they've tried on multiple occasions to try to get to be the only shoe brand that can make the soles of their shoes red. I remember they had this dispute with another business which tried to make their soles green, which is just not quite as sexy as red. So yeah, you see it in fintech a lot. Businesses like Klarna choosing pink rather than the blue. So yeah, I think it's a really important part of brand identity.
No, it's so true. And I think it's an interesting one when we think about modern branding. It doesn't seem like it gets the billing it should sometimes when people are talking about how to construct brand identity.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about other aspects, so like, I don't know, the oratory or the sound behind a brand, right? I mean, you mentioned McDonald's, like, ba-da-ba-da-ba, I'm loving it, is obviously something that everybody knows and recognizes. And then, you go into like an Apple store, and obviously that concept's been copied by Microsoft and others. The whole experience and the way that you experience Apple products in store is something that's also unique. But yeah, color doesn't seem to have the same airtime as sound or that sort of experiential in-store aspect.
No, it's so true. I think it's interesting that, when people talk about tone of voice or when people talk about communications behaviors, it feels like there's quite a lot of engagement. When people start to talk about visual identity and start to talk about color or one of the aspects within that, it seems like a lot of marketers tend to shy back. And I think it's a shame because, to your point, it's such an integral part of brand identity.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, Valentina, go ahead.
I was just saying, I mean, in fintech, obviously the sector that OakNorth's part of, I mean, you see this, there's been a number of brands that have really differentiated themselves with their color. So Klarna, as I mentioned, they've got a pink color, which, has been described so many times in the way that press and other stakeholders, when they discuss them, because it's something that in financial services you wouldn't really expect. But I listened to a podcast with the marketing director at the time, and she sort of said it was a big debate internally because a lot of the investors and the senior execs were men and were sort of like, no one's going to want like to use a pink thing. But actually, obviously, it's mainly a retail product, and the people that they'll be mostly interacting with. Not saying that girls choose pink and boys choose blue, but it makes it perhaps feel like less of a traditional financial services brand. And then Monzo, right, with their hot coral cards, and that's been a really big differentiator, and something that I know they always asked journalists to correct. The card's actually hot coral, it's not pink, it's not orange. So again, I think it can be, you've seen it in sort of outside of traditional B2C or retail. You've seen it in financial services as well.
It's so true. And it's such an interesting thing when color is used in a way where it stands out and creates cut through. I think when you have to start rebranding the color, that's the tricky thing. It's like I heard in a Waitrose once, someone was like, I love your red trousers. And someone went, oh no, they're salmon. So I think it's just back to the idea of how you start to badge that up. Jenna, What do you think? Hot pink, salmon, color in general? Is it a fad? Are we going to go back to black and white?
Nantucket Reds, I think, that's what Eric would say. Eric would make reference to Nantucket Reds if you were here, so I'm going to be hit from it. No, I mean, I don't know. I guess like as somebody in marketing, I have like, at least a passing interest, I think, to the same levels that you guys do, and like the psychology behind brand development. But, I spend money on things, so I really care about like, actually, this is very impactful for performance. I don't actually know if I can like name the brand, but we used to work on a very iconic British wellies brand in a former agency life, and saw really, really stark differences in performance versus like, different colorways of their products. And they had really cool, big, bright, vibrant colors. The blue one did the best. The blue one consistently did the best. And then red was kind of a close second. And so again, color influences performance. Although I was going to say, DuBose, like to your point about like, rebranding the colors. Also, sometimes I think that can help help with cut through as well. Like I just saw something about how in Sedona, Arizona, McDonald's has to change the color of the golden arches to like the turquoise, like Southwest, like turquoise color, because Sedona says the golden arches clash with like the normal like kind of landscape. And I think that's a cool place for McDonald's to be in, about like, hey, you know, that's like a very kind of like localized like, version of it a little bit. I don't know how that meshes with their overall like global brand strategy, but it is I would pay more attention to that because it's different in that instance. I think that those types of things, like those types of rebrands, can be a little eye-catching and again good for performance when we spend money. Yeah,
I think it's such an interesting point you raised, right? Like I think there's the challenge that color in a way can start to challenge what people expect from different things. There's an effect called the Stroop Effect. It's a slowdown in processing and cognition when the brain gets kind of a stimulus in color and text that differs. So the test is basically you get people to read colors written on a sheet, and in the beginning they're written in black and white, and later on the color, the text color, will actually be different than the word itself. So it'll be orange written in pink coloring, and you can start to see as people go through that how much longer it takes. There's a marked slowdown. So I think it's really intriguing because I think, you know, it's interesting, Valentina, you mentioned audio branding as well. I think there are so many subtle cues to amazing brands that really take a specialism to think about and really take talent. And I think a lot of marketers do themselves a disservice to not think about that. And then later on, after they built that up, play with it in interesting ways. To your point, Jenna, I think it was Sedona was nothing can clash against the mountains behind it. So there you go with the green arches in one place on Earth.
It's turquoise. Coral and turquoise. So.
I think you'll find it's rusted salmon. So
women, it's scientifically proven women are more precise in their color descriptions and selections than men are. They recognize more tones and more shades of colors more precisely than men do. So,
but is that because we're being sold more though? Like more often than not, like, you know, a guy would just be like, oh, they're black shoes, whereas a woman would be like, no, but they're actually like coal charcoal color or like whatever.
I can only assume that it's because women had to differentiate between different shades of berries evolutionarily, and it's like the hot coral berries will kill you and the pink ones will not. I assume that's definitely what it is. I miss.
Well, we started in color psychology and we ended in normative gender roles. But I think there is the idea that, you know, the rainbow shrimp, and don't quote me on this if there are any marine biologists listening, I think has a visible spectrum of color that's about 100 times greater than the human being. So yes, we may claim that women have more are exposed to more color psychology in marketing, but the rainbow shrimp is a completely untapped opportunity. So just one to mention there.
DuBose, I award you 100 points for the argument that shrimp are better than women at spotting colors. I'm going to go ahead and give you 100 points.
I am deeply uncomfortable having my name near that statement for many reasons, but I will go with it in this time. So let's see. I will award some points. I obviously got 100. Valentina, I think the article you brought was amazingly thought-provoking, so I would like to give you 10 points. Jenna, I am disappointed that you did not mention Carl Jung or Gestaltian psychology once. I give you 8 points. So,
all right, that's fair.
Carl Jung, color is the mother tongue of the subconscious. Yeah, learn it, live it, love it. Late Carl Jung, not just there to inspire Police albums. So anyway, let's move on to the second story, and out of obscure psychological references. So this one's from me. This is a story from the Creative Review about the design agency and Walsh, headed up by Jessica Walsh, which has done some incredible work over the years, using AI to create an identity for a nuclear energy influencer. And I never thought I would say this, but the nuclear energy influencer's name is Isodope. So it's like Isotope, but she's cool. So anyway, I think there's a few things about this story that really struck my my interest. A, the phrase nuclear energy influencer, and B, the fact that there's a brand identity being created through artificial intelligence to kind of create a visual identity for this person. Generally, just to kind of give an overview of how this worked. So if anyone's not familiar with it, there's a machine learning algorithm, machine learning platform, using the wrong term, called DALL-E, like Wall-E, but it's not, it doesn't pick up trash. And generally what it does, it's been trained on so many different bits of visual stimulus that you can give it a prompt. You could be like SpongeBob SquarePants wrestling a bull. And the next thing you know, it will draw that for you. It's quite interesting because as you see, it starts to talk about the ability of AI to kind of create. We're starting to see AI created art going into art competitions. It's starting to raise an interesting discussion of what is a tool and what has been created as an artist. But the thing I think is really, really interesting here is it shows that artificial intelligence isn't probably going to replace creatives. I think creatives have never been really worried about that, but the rest of the agency world has loved to talk about it. Instead, it's just going to enhance the ability to kind of create and think about new things. Because if you can start to generate different stimulus, you can then create great work with it. I think one of the things that strikes me here is it's not as if the final output was actually what the algorithm created. Instead, it still had to be photoshopped, redone, repolished, and kind of set out. So in a way, it's not that artificial intelligence would replace a creative director. At best, it's just another junior creative who's having to create a lot of work for someone. So now that I'm hosting, that'll count as my minute. But I would love to understand, Jenna, let's start with you. What do you think of this?
This makes me deeply uncomfortable on so many levels. To your point about the nuclear energy influencer, I'm going to leave that part aside.
Nuclear energy, it needs influencers.
Yeah,
I read that originally as an influencer exposed to nuclear energy, like a superhero, but it's not.
The goggles, they do nothing. That's a Simpsons quote for if anybody wants to look that one up. Simpsons reference. I should get bonus points for that, DuBose. No, again, leaving aside the subject matter of this and really only focusing on the AI aspect of this, I do think I do want to. I'm not a commissioner for this, but I do want to plug Reed Blackman, PhD. His book called Ethical Machines. It provides very, very like pragmatic, practical advice about the operationalization of putting in AI ethics committees actually into business and business decision making. Like in this article, like there's the quote about like, hey, there's ethical issues with like using AI for creative outputs that are trained on real humans' work and that they are not necessarily compensated for this. And the response from the And Walsh team was like, oh, well, I'm not concerned because this is really exciting. Being very excited is not at all like an answer like to address like whether or not something like is ethical or not. I don't necessarily have a problem, like I say, with the usage of AI for these tools or for these types of applications, but I do think that this is kind of one of those situations where it's like, what's the, I don't know if it's Alexander Pope, but it's the that man's reach should exceed his grasp a little bit. AI, and again, its applications in creative is one of those things where I think our reach on this is kind of exceeding what our grasp on these technologies is yet, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, especially when we're talking about its application for things like advocating for nuclear energy, which, regardless of how you feel about it, is a thorny issue. That's my 2 cents.
That is true. It's less scary than an artificial intelligence having access to nuclear energy, but we're slowly getting there.
By far, yeah, certainly, but definitely how do we feel about this? I don't really know that we went through a rigorous process of how we feel about it. We're like, oh, well, this is cool. Yeah, okay, all right.
Today, cool. The visual ID, tomorrow the launch codes. Sorry, Valentina, what do you think? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, the application of AI in certain parts of the creative world kind of, makes absolute sense. I mean, you've seen it with things like robo-journalism, for example. Obviously, it's never going to be the same as an in-depth investigative report from a journalist who's been in the industry for decades and decades. But can AI sort of take elements of the story from lots of different places and sort of mesh it into an article? Sure. In the same way that it could draw a picture of SpongeBob SquarePants wrestling a bull. I think when you start looking at something like influencers, I mean, so actually, Jenna, you mentioned Homer Simpson or Simpson reference. So the woman behind Isodope, Isabel Bomek or Bomek, she, in her TED talk, she actually referenced The Simpsons. So that kind of thing, bringing in humor and bringing in pop culture references. Those are the kinds of things which I'm not sure, and certainly not we're nowhere near that AI would be able to to start to connect those dots to make it something that a human would want to watch and listen to and tune in and follow someone. And that's really the big difference. And that's where I think, as you say, true creatives don't really ever have anything to worry about, because AI just won't be able to replace that.
It's such a good point. I think it's interesting. I think Rory Sutherland described in the book, like, creativity is the ability of joining previously unrelated things together. And I think it's intriguing, because you can do that through the brute force of machine learning, but someone still needs to sift through it. Someone still needs to understand it. And I think also, human thing.
Valentina, is it just going to be you and I for the rest of the show? Oh, no, DuBose is back. DuBose is back.
We didn't get your last comment there.
It was not that important. I was basically just, I halfway through, when the internet looked like it was going to cut, I went, Jenna, over to you, hoping that was the one bit that somehow made it through. Anyone have any other points on AI and its slow march towards the next Terminator movie being the T-9000 that also writes copy? Anything else?
I mean, I guess just one other thought when I was kind of looking at this is like other kind of energy and climate change influences. Greta Thunberg's someone who comes to mind. And I remember the speech, where she was like, how dare you? You've taken my childhood. And, obviously, a lot of people felt it was a very powerful and moving speech. A lot of people felt it was had great comedic value, and many a meme was created, and many a TikTok was created as a result. And again, with something like that, I think you just wouldn't find AI being able to kind of show that emotion of a young woman there in front of a number of very important, powerful people, so angry on the cusp of tears. You're just not going to see that from an AI avatar. And so again, I just think with those kinds of things, in order to really influence people and influence change, you need human and emotion. So, yeah.
It's so true.
AI is dumb. I think AI is dumb. Like, artificial intelligence is a misnomer. AI is dumb. They're like limited application like tools. It's more just that they actually are quite powerful, but they have limited uses. Get ethics committees in your organization about the use of AI. And honestly, this reads like the same people are like, oh, hand drafting is going to go the way of the dodo. Like, Photoshop is going to put so many creatives out of work. No, it's just another tool that creatives are going to use. Like, Photoshop made creatives' lives better. AI tools like this will do the same.
Is hand drafting where you use an X-Acto knife and start to cut something out? Are we talking like 1950 style typesetting will never die?
As far as I'm aware, DuBose, there was the Mad Men era of advertising, and then nothing, and then I entered advertising. So, yes, I guess.
Yes, yeah. The 90s was just Trevor Hagarty playing the bongos and sitting around somewhere in Carnaby Street. That was about it.
I'm pretty sure.
If you're listening, hi, Sir Trevor. So anyway, great. So on that second one, let's see. Jenna, you managed to tie together ethics committee and a line from one of the best Simpsons episodes where Milhouse becomes Fallout Boy. So that's going to be 10 points. And then Valentina, I think you raised some amazing points there, not just about artificial intelligence, but the nature of creativity, and then also the need for more empathy and influence in the climate change debate, probably less just SpongeBob wrestling in Pamplona. So I'm going to give you 8 points. So we are all tied up going into the final round. And that is when, I would be a bit worried because we're getting into the media news of things. So watch out. Warm up, Jenna. Limber up. Don't pull a hammy. What we got here, a story from Adweek. Bloomberg Media is shutting off its open market programmatic advertising. So Bloomberg Media will stop serving open market third-party programmatic display advertising on both its website and its mobile app from the 1st of January, 2023, just when you thought the day after New Year's could not get any worse. The decision aims to improve the user experiences. Open market programmatic display ads undergo few quality assurance processes, which means they could be misaligned with the Bloomberg Media brand. And this decision to eliminate open market third-party programmatic display, that's got to be an acronym we can create somewhere, tracks with larger shifts occurring in the media industry as more publishers recognize the need to design their websites to prioritize readers rather than overstuff pages full of ad slots if they hope to generate reader revenue. I've said media 3 times, so therefore Jenna has appeared in a darkened room with some candles that have been lit. So let's go to you first, Jenna. What's up with this? What's Bloomberg doing? And why is it on the 1st of January?
I don't know why it's on the 1st of January. Honestly, I'm going to leave that part aside. Bloomberg is doing something awesome. I'm gonna draw a thread from the previous tool. Programmatic advertising is a tool just like AI is, right? Like it definitely, leverages human effort, or, multiplies like human effort, where you can again put your ads out and extend your reach and put them on really great placements. But it's dumb. It's a dumb tool that frequently is misused by the people who want to buy it. People buy terrible programmatic inventory. They put garbage on media plans and like sell this shit to clients, and it's like never a good experience for the reader. It's not really typically buying value for the actual advertiser. And I think that, like, especially, in a time when we're talking about, like, well, how will publishers make money, like, in a world without, like, cookies and, like, data tracking? They shouldn't have been making their money that way to begin with, because it was, like, always, like, a complete and ridiculous house of cards. And to see Bloomberg, which is a very significant, large, like, outlet, pulling back like this and saying, you know what, we actually want to be starting to sell our inventory more directly, or, again, more, like, for better experience, like, better buy structures, is huge. And I hope way more publishers take suit, and that advertisers start demanding significantly better controls on what actually happens with their programmatic ad dollars.
There you go. 2023, the better buying year. So that's a new resolution, one that maybe will get popular this year. But Valentina, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I echo a lot of those points. I think still so much today. I mean, I'm convinced my iPhone is listening to me. I'm 5.5 months pregnant at the moment, and like when I was sort of first finding out that I was pregnant, and I would just sort of say things, and suddenly I'd start to have all this stuff like appearing in my feed. My iPhone's definitely listening to me. So I don't know. I think it will make the whole user experience much better. I also think it just makes it sort of creates a distinguishing factor between very credible news outlets like a Bloomberg versus and credible businesses like Bloomberg versus other less credible ones, where you just know, well, the experience I'm gonna have there is one where I'm really bombarded and shown a bunch of stuff that maybe I don't really want or need. So from my perspective, I think it's very positive, and they're the kind of credible brand that will hopefully set the trend and make others follow suit.
So to that point, as far as a market trend and a shift towards credibility, where does this go? How far does this expand? Is this something we should expect to see from most media owners? Are there going to be holdouts? What's 2023 look like with Bloomberg doing this and others considering following?
I think more premium publishers definitely do this. Like the New York Times is the world, like the Wall Street Journals, like maybe, I mean, those properties maybe a little bit differently. They have a lot more placements and inventory, but like, I guess like also related to like the cookie banner experience. A lot of, like I said, these ad placements and again, like the pop-up, like, consent and the cookie banners are ruining site experiences for people. I saw a stat recently that web page load times have like been stalled at like an average of like 4 seconds for load times for years and years and years now, which is ridiculous given, how much like processing power on most of our computers like has improved. But they're stalled there because again, there's been so many things added about, significantly more ad inventory that requires calls to many different like publishers and again, like different DSPs and quite a few other like technical things that are ruining that experience. And so I think that especially like I say, given some of the legal rulings that have happened in the preceding years about Facebook being required to Facebook and Google being required to share revenue, or again, not detract from publisher traffic and a couple other things. Hopefully this means again that the balance of power is going to shift a little bit more towards media publishers, is my hopeful, fingers crossed, 2 cents.
Wow. Hopeful for a greater quality of coverage and advertising on the internet. I do think there's an interesting point Valentina raised. iPhone's listening to people. It's something Jenna and I have chatted about quite a few times before. I do think
coming around on this one.
I just show of hands just to round this bit off, and then I'll give out points. Like, Jenna, do you think your iPhone is listening to you?
Okay, so yeah, I have to revise my thing because previously I was staunch and like, no, your iPhone is not listening to you. It's actually worse that people don't understand how good the machine learning and like recommendation algorithms are for platforms. I do still think that that's true. However, it absolutely is now the case that your iPhone is listening to you. There are in fact data brokers that I have identified that you can in fact buy that data from. So both positions are true. I'll eat a small piece of crow on that one. Your phone is listening to you, but also the machine learning algorithms are really creepy. Oh, that man's reach should exceed his grasp. This is one of those things. Twice in one
Valentina,
episode.
you're gonna do you agree? iPhones.
I mean,
listening
the
to
thing
people?
is like I just hadn't Googled anything at that point. Like all that had happened was that I had literally, not to be too graphic, but like peed on a stick and like told my husband, and like he was in the room, so I didn't tell him like through any kind of technology medium. And then within a few hours, this stuff started to appear on my feed, and I hadn't done any like searching on the internet of like what's happening when you're this many weeks pregnant or anything like that.
We're again, possibly weirdly personal question. Where did you buy the pregnancy tests from?
From like a corner shop.
Honestly though, and like, so I don't know as much about this like in the UK, but like again in the US, like Datalogix is like is a provider that deals with selling point of sale like customer loyalty and credit card data and joining it with your like IDs. Wow. And like user platform information. It is absolutely, this is what I mean, and that like the sophistication of these data sources is really just frankly beyond the understanding of the majority of people that are not deeply stuck into how this works, where it's like, well, like, well, I haven't done anything. I'm like, you actually did a bunch of things leading up to that. And it's like, it's a trail of breadcrumbs that get like turned into this little pointless painting that they figured it out. Mm-hmm. It can in fact also be that your phone is listening to you. That definitely is a thing. But it is in a little bit more limited use cases.
Well, what's the old quote? It's like just because you're paranoid doesn't mean someone's not out to get you.
Yes.
I know we're running out of time. I will say on the phone listening point, there's an amazing thing I'll put in the show notes. It's a story from someone on Reddit where they were talking about basically if you're in the military and you call back to the US, apparently sometimes phone calls are monitored. So a couple had basically spent a year while one person was posted abroad, basically making up that someone was listening to all of their calls and calling the person Frank. And in the last call before they went home, they tell an amazing story where it goes, goodbye, Frank. And then there's a small pause. And right before they hang up, he goes, actually, my name's Tom. So I thought it was kind of a nice thing that every now and then, there is actually someone on the other end. And if there's someone in my iPhone, I feel bad for them. Points wise, just going into who wins. Generally, I've got to say we were tied at 18. And Jenna, I'm going to give you 8 points for a combination of talking about buying every bodega in New York's data and then cross-referencing that to digital advertising. If it hasn't been done far, it needs to be. Where's the bodega data broker? Where is it? And Valentina, I've got to say, combining the combination of iPhone privacy, pregnancy, and Bloomberg's shift quality media, I'm giving you 9 points. Congratulations. You are this week's winner.
Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. So generally, there'll be 2 things that are now happening. You have a minute to either rant or rave about anything of your choice. And then afterwards, we'll be debuting a new feature on the show. So stick around afterwards for Jenna to show us something new. So Valentina, let's start with you.
Eric's not here. Eric's not here. I'm not doing it this week. Eric's not here. We're not doing it. It's just Valentina's rave.
Okay, well, the floor is yours, Valentina.
So I thought very obviously very humbled to win, and I wasn't expecting this. It's a huge honor. But I thought staying on the color theme, and I know I've discussed this with you guys before and Eric, but it's like one of my like things that just is a real pet peeve in the marketing world is brands jumping on the woke bandwagon when it comes to their brand identity. And you see this, time and again, whether it's like, I'm going to turn our logo into a rainbow color, or I'm going to black out our logo during, Black History Month, or in support of Black Lives Matter. That's great. You want to use your brand, you want to use your influence, and this is a visual way of doing that, but it needs to be backed up with actual action and doing something then that is, genuinely having a tangible impact on those communities that you're, claiming to be defending. And it's just so ridiculous. You see so many businesses, they literally have these Excel spreadsheet calendars where it's like, make sure to turn the logo this color, and then we're going to do nothing else. And then the next month we're going to do this, change it to this color and do nothing else. So just want to say to brands, like, if you're going to do it, great, but then back it up with some really credible action behind it.
An amazing rant, and I think a great point where, color isn't meaning unless you put meaning behind it. So I think we'll leave it there. Valentina, thanks for your time. Jenna, a pleasure as always. I've been Eric Fulweiler, and come next week for the feature that we did talk about, which will happen. It's a bit of a preview for it. There'll be a new feature on Punchy next week. But until then, thanks for listening, and see everyone soon.
Punchy is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with Jenna, DuBose, or myself, email us at media@wearerival.com or find us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.